Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to a bonus episode of the Civil Gore podcast. I'm your host, Tim.
And this is Brian. And we have a fun little episode here. It's another bonus episode. You guys are getting a lot of bonus lately.
Yeah, you're going to get a lot of bonus this month.
But this one is cool because this was that movie that Shudder was so gracious to send us, which we kind of mentioned on our last episode, where it was called Scare Package. And a lot of you may have seen it as Last Drive-In with Joe Bob had premiered it. So we were lucky to get the awesome Aaron Koontz, the director of Scare Package, one of the directors, there were several, to come on and talk with us for a little bit.
Yeah. Aaron was awesome to come on and talk about this movie. And, man, we really, really love this one. You guys that saw it on Joe Bob obviously have kind of already made up your mind about it. I saw a lot of great feedback on Twitter that night. But you guys that have not seen it, when it premieres today, as you're listening to this, premieres on Shudder, definitely go check it out. This is a horror comedy anthology, which you do not see.
No.
I can't. I was trying to think in my mind if I'd ever could even think of a horror comedy anthology. I mean, I guess you could argue that Creepshow kind of had a lighter tone to it, but it's not the same. It's not a true horror comedy.
Right, and Tales from Halloween had comical segments.
Right, but none of them were like, this one is horror comedy throughout.
Oh, yeah.
Which is very unique.
Yes, 100%.
And you gore fans are going to absolutely love it because it's got some fantastic gore scenes some really cool surprises. And, man, Easter eggs galore. This is one movie you're going to want to watch over and over because I picked up things on the second viewing. Brian and I had watched the screener, and then I watched the premiere on Joe Bob, and I picked up just so many things that I missed the first time around.
Oh my God, yeah, it was, and it's so funny because after we talked to Aaron, he kind of alluded to some, so I was kind of like paying a little more attention to it, and so I'm like, oh yeah, look at that. So it's one of those movies that are really fun in a group setting. Like I think he even said it, right? He said that like this is a movie you want to like you could pull off the shelf and show somebody, because it'll be a really fun movie in a group, especially if you have a bunch of horror fans and in attendance in that group. There's just like, especially, oh my God, if you were like 80s guys like Tim and I, you're even gonna get a bonus, I'll tell you.
Yeah. So guys, definitely check out Scare Package on Shudder, dropping today. And without further ado, here is our interview with Aaron Koontz.
So it's no secret that Tim and I are big fans of horror anthologies. We're also big fans of horror comedies. Well, our next guest is one of the creators of a new film coming to Shudder entitled Scare Package that checks both those boxes. So welcome to Civil Gore, Aaron Koontz.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thanks for joining us. So I guess before we discuss Scare Package, why don't you tell our listeners a bit about yourself and how you got into film?
Yeah, so look, I've just been a diehard film person my entire life. I grew up scaring my brother, hiding around and watching, my grandmother got HBO for free, and I would put a videotape in every night and record HBO overnight and then come the next time I saw her and take the tape out, and I would watch whatever movies were there. And that was my kind of, little first film school of learning about horror films, and because they played a lot of horror films overnight. And so it's always been in my DNA from a small child. And then I went to Full Sail University and, for film, worked in freelance for a number of years there. And then I left the film industry for a long time and kind of focused on in the tech world. And I worked in games as a game producer. But I always wanted to get back to movies. And then in 2012, founded Paper Street Pictures in Austin, Texas, and was like, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get back to doing what I love to do. And then we just started making short films and whatever little projects we could, and made our first feature in 2017. That was Camera Obscura with Universal. And and kind of been, doing more and more things ever since there. So, but it's in my DNA completely.
Yeah, and I remember those late night HBO ones because I was when I was a kid, I had cable in my room that I probably shouldn't have had, and I remember seeing a lot of like horror that way. That's how a lot of my exposure came too.
Yeah, they wouldn't play the R movies during the day as much back then. So It was like at night was when they would do them. So that was when I saw Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, The Shining. I mean, all those movies showed up at some point. And what was weird is a couple of them, the first time I saw The Shining, I didn't even know it was The Shining because the title, I didn't get the beginning of the film, and there's something was wrong with the tape. And I was like, what is this movie that I've watched? What the hell is this? So yeah, it was a big part of shaping. It makes a lot of sense now when you think about what I'm doing now in life.
So Aaron, let's talk a little bit about Scare Package, because Brian and I both watched it today and absolutely loved it. It's really, really, really fun movie and definitely a love letter to horror fans. So tell us a little bit about how it came to be and sort of the filmmaking process.
Yeah, look, my writing partner and a partner at Paper Street, Cameron Burns, was always pushing us to do an anthology. And I was like, I don't know, do I really want to do an anthology? There's so many great ones that are out there, and they have budgets that we're not going to have. So, what can we really say in this space that's new and unique and different? But he kept encouraging me because it really came down to, we wanted to work with our friends and we wanted to do something that we could spread out over a longer period of time in production so we could still develop the other bigger movies that we were doing. And coincidentally, we were able to make The Pale Door the entire time we were finishing Scare Package, which is, so now we have 2 movies releasing in 2 months, which is a really amazing luxury to have. But the real hook for me came when I did a deep dive. I'm very OCD. And I decided that, I put on a grid all of the anthologies and like what I liked and what I wanted to focus on. And I realized that I loved horror comedies. And then I also realized that there wasn't an anthology that was all horror comedy. And I was like, you know what, that's a hook. And then when the conceit came in from there was, well, let's call it Tropes. The original title was Tropes. And each segment is a different horror trope that you're making fun of. And I was like, well, that could be a lot of fun. But it had to be make fun of while also kind of bear hugging at the same time. Because you can be self-deprecating, but know that it comes from this place of love, because that's what this is. I mean, this is the genre that I grew up on and that I'm obsessed with. And I wanted, at the same time, there were a lot of people talking about elevated genre and all that. It was frustrating me. And I was like, let's just do something that's back and fun and talks about why, what I really loved about, these horror films growing up. And that's really where it kind of was birthed out of. And then it became this, well, now let's just hire all our friends, and people that we wanted to be closer friends with. And we didn't know that well, but we're like, let's work together, and let's do this. And that's where it kind of came out of.
That's awesome. So now, what was it like, I guess, collaborating with so many others? Because when they have anthologies, they have different directors, different writers, and everyone participating. So what was that like? And did you kind of set up guidelines before it and kind of say like, okay, here's what I want for each segment, kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we approached this as if we were showrunners on a TV series, and it was like, look, here's a list of tropes we want you to look at. Here's what we're kind of going for. It needs to be, comedy can be different to different folks. There's different ways of being comedic. So you can take your approach there, but we wanted to focus on practical effects. We wanted to focus on having fun. We said horror with heart was something we said a lot of times. And then, we would help them develop the ideas. Like but we wanted to give enough creative freedom to these amazing directors to say, like, how do you want to do this? Like, how do you want to tell your story? And allow them to show that creativity and put it on screen, but then still mold it and shape it to fit this bigger narrative that we wanted to do. I always knew that, I was going to be doing this wrap and finale, and I wanted that to be one cohesive story. That even if you never diverted from the main story, that was one movie in and of itself. And then these were these fun little, snippets that would kind of like pull you in and out of that main story. But we didn't want the wrap to be something that was an afterthought. It needed to be, in fact, the opposite. Like that was what was driving everything. So that was important. And once we kind of found that, it was, just shaping these amazingly talented folks. And look, there were a number of segments that we had from folks that were suggested, and we're like, that doesn't quite fit for these reasons. I love it. I think it's a great short. But it doesn't really stand within the story that we were trying to tell. There were other times where folks pitched tropes that were too similar to other things, and we had to reshape them. So yeah, we were very involved in all of that, in trying to make it all feel, part of this bigger package, no pun intended. So, although I say no pun intended, it's completely pun intended. The name of the film is a trope. when we decided it's going to be tropes, I couldn't call it tropes because the name needs to be a trope. So it needs to be like Chopping Mall or Silent Night, Deadly Night. Like that's also a horror trope. So like, let's lean into it everywhere and every opportunity we can, you know, and how we make that happen.
Yes, we believe actually in very about intended puns. In fact, this was I don't know if you could read it, but this was a gift that Tim had gotten me one year.
That's wonderful. I prefer my puns intended.
So we are all for those puns and love every one of them. So.
Yeah, speaking of that wraparound, it was just fantastic because it takes place in a video rental store, and Brian and I are both children of the 80s, and we have very fond memories of the rental stores. So can you tell us kind of how that idea came about? I'm sure you've got some stories from your past of hitting the old rental store.
Yeah. Well, first off, it takes place at Vulcan Video, which sadly just went out of business due to COVID, and that just breaks my heart. It's here in Austin, Texas. It's just a staple, and that's so sad. So, but I am glad that we can at least, you know, give it one last heyday so that people can kind of see what that was like. So it was fun to be in there. But I mean, look, my jobs growing up were I either worked at a coffee shop or I worked at a video store. Those were like the two things that I did. And at coffee shops, I was always trying to put on movies and music from movies at the coffee shop. You know, what I was trying to do. So that's what it centered around. And we knew that there was an interesting opportunity there, that if you're bringing a new employee and you're teaching them the rules of horror, that gives you an interesting way to talk about horror without having to kind of pigeonhole these stories into some of their narratives. So that gave us a little leeway. But then there was a challenge with that because, you know, the easy answer was, okay, well, he just puts in a new tape and a new segment starts. I was like, that's going to get boring. Like, I don't want to do that. Let's have fun. So we open like immediately on a segment, you know, and then it goes into what this is. And then one segment is all pantomiming, you know, another segment, you know, there's beautiful feathers following in the Andahar sisters, amazing Girls Not Out of Body. And it's ethereal. And I'm like, wow, this ends so beautifully. How am I going to go back to this completely stupid sophomore humor that I have that I'm going to do in the wraparound? You know, how do I make that happen? So I had them mail me the exact feathers that they had. And then I had him hitting with a pillow and the feathers are falling and, you know, merge the music together. And, you know, so it's like, okay, that's fun. Now that's a fun way of doing this. So, you know, we knew that every opportunity we could to inject a little life into it, because this was all us, you know, there was nobody we answered to. And that was the reason why we made it. It was like, we just wanted to do something with our friends the way we wanted to do it. And if it's a failure, it's completely on us and we get it. But we own that because we kind of had an idea that we thought was, you know, people had seen this. There's a pastiche, it's referential, you know, there is definitely, you know, there's nostalgia, but we also thought it could be unique and stand on its own legs at the same time, or at least we really hoped that it did for folks.
Yeah, it looked like that must have been so much fun to make. I tell you, because just you could see like there were like you said, it was that love letter in there to the horror while also kind of doing the little comedy of it, and it just looked like it was fun. It was amazing. We're actually editing our blooper reel right now. That's going to go on the DVD that's coming out later this year, the Blu-ray and everything. Yeah, I'm cracking up just watching these other scenes. There's so much funny stuff we couldn't even put in. So I'm excited. Yeah, I'm definitely going to buy that when it comes out. Yeah. So great. If someone is curious about watching Scare Package, how would you give them a quick pitch on it to get them to really sell them on it to watch it? Yeah, you know, look, if you're like, I think there's a lot of people, you hear this term all the time that's made by horror fans for horror fans. And a lot of times I roll my eyes at that. I'm like, is it really? Like, are you really? And it's, you know, I mean, look, I've got a Friday the 13th tattoo. I used to argue with my friends about who was going to win between, you know, Freddy and Jason and all this. And like, you know, and we would have debates about, I made lists of my favorite kills of, you know, across the board, which by the way, it's of course, you know, New Blood with the sleeping bag. We all know that. But this is what I came from. So look, I think the bigger the horror fan, the more everything's going to land. But it's also, this is an escape. It's meant to just be fun. I challenge anyone that if you're not too cynical about everything, that if you just kind of, you know, just relax and try and have fun, I think it can do that for you. You know, I think that's a big part of what we were going for. And, you know, look, if you don't like meta, that might be a problem. Okay. That might be a problem because it's very meta. I get that. But you know what? I think one of the problems with meta is that sometimes they're punching down.
and they're not really taking it from approach of love. And that was something that we pushed so wholeheartedly to have be an important facet of this. And everyone talked about what they love about horror and what they could really make unique. And, you know, so it's, look, it is truly a love letter to horror. And, you know, the other times that's said, I don't know, we'll see. But I can tell you without a doubt, it really is this time.
Nice. Well, so Aaron, this is your chance to promote yourself and tell our listeners where they can find you out on social media.
Sure. Look, I will say, you know, I love talking to people about these movies. I mean, right now there's so much that's going on in the world, and Black Lives Matter, defund the police, and you know, there's facets of the world that are going on that I think are very important that people need to be talking about, and that we can be a part of change. But I also know that folks need to have an escape. You know, they need to have a moment to kind of like divert from that, and I get that. And I really hope that this can be it. I really hope that this can be an opportunity. And when I'm down and we're frustrated with what's going on in the world, I will sometimes just search Scare Package on Twitter and see the results from people, and it makes me happy. So just know that I personally see all of it. I do. I look for it. And so do the other directors. I know so many of them do as well, because all we wanted to do, the reason why I make movies is for people, some person that I don't know out there, that if they're going through a tough time, that maybe they pop this on and I'm getting an emotion out of them. And because that's what I did. That's what it was for me. And I really hope it could be for other people. So I'm Aaron B. Koontz everywhere. You search me, I'm there. I would love to talk to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I mean, if you hated it, you don't have to tell me that. That would be great. I would love not to hear that. But if you love it, I'd love to know. And so would all the other directors, because we made this, you know, as a gift to you all. Like, we're not making a ton of money off this movie. We're not, you know, this is all just for, you know, to our little, like I said, love letter to horror. And I hope that folks enjoy it. And that's what it's all about. Like, that's what it's all about.
That's great. Yeah. And with it being on Shudder, I mean, Shudder has been, is like a godsend for horror fans. So I am sure just that alone will get so many people talking and getting to see this thing. And I know we love to you know, to share all that stuff. So we'll be glad to make sure we promote it the best we can, make sure everyone hears about that for you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. June 18th on Shudder, and, you know, give it a watch. And, you know, look, I do think too, it's filled with Easter eggs. There are so many little subtle nods and hints that are there that if you pause and you read what's on the screen or what's in the background, or like, why is this in focus? And there's a reason for it. There's so much there for you to unpack, because that's what I love. I love doing that stuff with the movies that I watch. So, I mean, we painstakingly would stop and I was like, nope, we got to do this shot again, because I want to make sure this is in the background and you can see it and you can read this, or I want this on the screen, or I want to say these things. Because that makes, you know, movies more enjoyable to revisit them and watch with your friends. So when COVID's in a better spot, get your friends together, you know, and watch it, because it's meant to be a communal experience too. And I think that makes it even that much more fun.
Definitely. Yeah, that screams watch party, this movie. So, and that was an intended pun, saying scream. So, you know,
I got you. We're right there. We've come full circle. Wonderful.
Yes. But yeah, so thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, this was great getting to talk to you and hear more about it, because we both are really big fans of the film, and we hope all our listeners will check it out.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And then in 2 months, I got another movie coming out called The Pale Door. It's a horror Western.
Right.
But I mean, it's total opposite of Scare Package in every way. So, you know, we're excited. We're excited to get a couple movies out there that are very different, but are all, you know, come from this weird genre mashup world that we love to play in. And I can't wait for everyone to see it on Shudder and experience, you know, what we did. So thank you so much for your time. And yeah, I can't wait to check out more of your podcasts as well. I'm excited to listen.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. Yes, thank you for coming on.
All right, Brian, that was fantastic. Aaron's such a cool guy.
Yeah.
And I can't thank him enough for coming on and promoting the film. It was a blast. And I hope you guys enjoy it just as much as Brian and I did.
Yeah, so definitely watch that. It's on Shudder. You have no excuse, because I know you all have Shudder if you listen to our podcast. If you don't, then I'm really stunned, because we've only been talking about it since the podcast began.
Like nearly every episode,
yeah.
So we'll be back here next week, the full episode, and man, you guys are in for another treat with our next big episode.
Yes.
The guests just keep on coming, guys, so stay tuned. We'll see you back here on Monday.
See ya.